This is my story, my confession. They said no one ever came back from his house. The mansion stood alone at the far edge of Halem Lake, half hidden behind a curtain of mist. From the road it looked abandoned, the kind of place that had forgotten how to smile. Yet something in me wanted to see what others feared. Maybe because fear and curiosity are twins. I needed this job, yes, but more than that, I needed quiet. I needed to start breathing again after the noise of the city and the collapse of everything I'd once called love. So when the gate creaked open and the gravel whispered under my shoes, I told myself this was only work. Only that. The door opened before I could knock twice. He filled the frame like a storm fills a sky. Tall. Broad. Half his face hidden by shadow. A faint white scar curved down from his temple toward the line of his jaw. His eyes were the kind that seemed to weigh everything they looked at. Miss Rivera? His voice was low, roughened by disuse. Yes, I said. Isabella Rivera. You must be Mr. Hale. He inclined his head, no smile. Come in. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and rain. Portraits lined the hallway, faces half lost to time. A fire glowed somewhere deeper in the house, but the warmth didn't reach here. You'll find your room upstairs, he said. Meals are at 7. You'll not enter the West Wing. The West Wing? I asked, because curiosity is my worst habit. It's private, he said, and walked away. Night came early over the lake. The house changed with it, walls that seemed merely large in daylight felt endless in darkness. Somewhere a clock ticked like a heartbeat. I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was him, the image of those gray eyes, the scar that looked almost tender in the firelight. I left my bed, wrapped my robe tighter, and followed the faint sound of music drifting through the halls. A piano. He was there, in the great room, sleeves rolled, fingers moving slowly across the keys. The melody was hesitant at first, then sure, sad in a way that made my own chest ache. Beautiful, I whispered. He stopped. Looked up. For a moment, neither of us moved. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. I couldn't sleep, I answered. The music, I hesitated. It sounded lonely. A flicker of something, surprise? Amusement, crossed his face. He rose from the bench, even across the room I could feel the heat of him. I don't usually have company, he murmured. I can tell. I smiled before I could stop myself. His gaze lingered on me, too long, too careful. Then he turned away. Good night, Miss Rivera. Good night, Mr. Hale, I whispered to the empty room after he'd gone. Days became a rhythm. He was polite but distant, I was curious but cautious. He spent mornings in his study, evenings walking the lake path alone. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of him through a window, shoulders bent under invisible weight. One rainy afternoon the power failed. I found him in the library, candles flickering around us. The storm outside howled, thunder shook the windows. Looks like we're trapped, I said, half laughing. He looked up from his book. You don't like storms? I used to, I said. Until someone told me thunder was the sky breaking. He closed the book, watching me with that unreadable calm. And now? Now I think it's just the sky reminding us it's alive. Something softened in his expression. You have a way of saying things that sound like they mean more than they do. Maybe they do, I replied, stepping closer to light another candle. My hand brushed his when I reached for the matchbox. He didn't move away. Neither did I. The moment was fragile, suspended between heartbeat and breath. Then lightning flashed, bright enough to show the scar on his face clearly. I saw the pain there, the story he never told. He turned away first. "Dinner will be late," he said quietly. "The generator should come on soon." I wanted to ask about the scar, the loneliness, the way he played the piano as if he were apologizing to the notes. But I only said, "I'll help in the kitchen." His eyes flicked toward me again, softer this time. "If you wish." The storm refused to leave. For 2 days the sky poured its grief into the lake, and the mansion echoed with the sound. I found peace in the small kitchen, sleeves rolled, making soup by candlelight. When he appeared in the doorway, hair damp, shirt open at the collar, I forgot what I was doing. "I didn't expect you to cook," he said. "I didn't expect the power to vanish for 48 hours, I answered, laughing softly. He moved closer, the air around him smelling of rain and cedar. "I used to cook," he murmured. Before, the rest of the sentence disappeared into silence. "Before the accident?" I asked gently. He nodded once. Lightning caught the pale line across his cheek. "Most people can't look at it." "I'm not most people." That earned the faintest hint of a smile. He reached for the spoon I was holding, our hands brushing. Electricity, real, wordless, passed between us. He didn't pull away this time. We ate together by candlelight, the kind that makes every glance seem longer than it should be. When thunder rolled again, I flinched. He reached out without thinking and covered my hand with his. His palm was warm, calloused, steady. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I'm not," I whispered, but my heart knew I was, just not of the storm. By the weekend the rain stopped. The mansion woke up in pieces, sunlight spilled through the tall windows like forgiveness. I wandered through corridors until I reached the forbidden west wing. The door wasn't locked. Inside hung a half-finished portrait, a young man, unscarred, laughing beside a woman whose eyes looked like mine. Dust lay thick across the frame. "You weren't supposed to see that," came his voice behind me. I turned. "She's beautiful." "Who was she?" "My fiancé." He paused. "She didn't survive the crash." "I'm sorry," I said. "So am I." He stepped closer, and for the first time I saw not anger in him but grief, old, unhealed, honest. People stopped coming after that. Easier to let them think I died, too. "And now?" I asked. "Now you're here." Those words hung between us. I felt them settle somewhere inside me, where logic couldn't reach. I wanted to touch his face, trace the scar, tell him it didn't make him less. Instead, I said quietly, "No one stays hidden forever." He looked at me for a long moment, then turned toward the window. "Perhaps," he said. "But some of us forget how to be seen." A week later, the village held its summer gala. The caretaker invited me. I almost declined, but Mr. Hale surprised me. "You should go," he said. "You've earned a night away from this place." "And you?" I asked. "I don't do crowds." "Then come with me." He looked up sharply. "People stare." "Let them." For a heartbeat he said nothing, then, "One dance." "If you insist." That night I found him waiting by the lake in a dark suit, hair tied back, scar barely visible under the lantern light. The boatman ferried us across the water to the sound of violins drifting from the shore. When we stepped into the hall, the room fell quiet, not from judgment, but awe. We danced slowly. His hand at my back was tentative at first, then certain. The music carried us, and the world narrowed to the rhythm of his breath against my hair. "I haven't done this in years," he whispered. You're perfect at it, I said. He smiled, a real one this time. When the song ended, we stood still, unwilling to break the spell. Then he leaned closer, his forehead resting lightly against mine. No words, just warmth, the promise of something unnamed. Outside, fireworks began over the lake. Their reflections painted his eyes gold. For the first time, he didn't look like a man haunted by shadows. He looked like someone beginning to remember the light. End of part 1, to be continued in part 2, Flames of the Heart. He was in the garden when I found him, trimming the wild roses that grew against the old stone wall. The sleeves of his shirt were rolled high, sunlight caught the faint sheen of a scar along his forearm. I didn't know you had a garden, I said. He smiled without looking up. I didn't, until you came. Something inside me caught at that, soft, dangerous. I knelt beside him, brushing a petal from my hair. These roses, they bloom even in shade. They remind me of you. He said it so quietly I almost missed it. When I met his gaze, the world tilted a little. The air between us felt warmer than sunlight. He looked away first, setting down the shears. You have a way of waking things that should stay asleep. Maybe they don't want to sleep anymore, I whispered. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of roses and rain. When he reached to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingered, not in hesitation, more like wonder. Isabella. I knew that tone. It was the edge where fear meets desire. I placed my hand over his. It's okay, I said. You don't have to hide from me. He hesitated, eyes tracing my face as if memorizing every detail. Then he leaned closer, close enough for me to feel his breath, close enough for my pulse to trip over itself. And stopped. The sound of the caretaker's footsteps broke the spell. He stepped back quickly, voice steady but eyes shaken. We should go inside. The weather's turning. I didn't argue. But as I followed him back through the arched doorway, I knew something had begun, a fire too quiet to notice, yet impossible to put out. That evening, I brought him tea in the library. He was standing by the tall mirror near the hearth, staring at his reflection like it was a stranger. Does it hurt? I asked. He turned slightly. What? The scar. Not anymore. He traced it absently. It's not the mark that hurts, it's what it reminds me of. Tell me. He shook his head. There's nothing to tell. But there was. I could see it behind his eyes, the years he'd spent blaming himself for surviving. So I did the only thing that felt right. I stepped closer, took the cup from his hand, and set it aside. You can't heal what you keep punishing, I said softly. You deserve peace, Adrian. It was the first time I'd said his name aloud. Something flickered in him, recognition, vulnerability, the faintest crack in his armor. He reached up as if to touch my face, stopped halfway, then let his hand fall. You make me want things I shouldn't want. Then stop thinking of them as wrong. He laughed once, quietly. You don't understand what I've done. Maybe not, I said. But I understand what it means to be lonely. For a long moment he didn't move. Then he lifted my hand to his lips, a gesture so gentle it felt like a promise. Thank you, he whispered. I wanted to ask for what, but I already knew. I woke to find the house shaking, wind slamming against the shutters. Downstairs, the piano was playing again, wild, desperate. I followed the sound, heart racing. He was there in the half-dark, hands trembling on the keys. Adrian, I called. He froze, then turned toward me, eyes wet with something more than exhaustion. I can't stop seeing her, he said. Every time I close my eyes, I hear her scream. I crossed the room. It wasn't your fault. She died because I was driving. His voice broke. I should have died with her. I put my hands on his shoulders, forcing him to look at me. But you didn't. You lived. You've been punishing yourself for being alive, and that's not love, it's grief eating itself. For a heartbeat he just stared. Then something in him shattered. He reached for me, not out of passion but out of need, and I held him. We stood like that for a long time, the storm raging outside, our breathing the only rhythm that mattered. When he finally pulled back, his hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheek. His voice was raw. You make it stop hurting. And before I could answer, he kissed me, slowly, reverently, as though he was afraid I might vanish. It wasn't the kiss of a man claiming something. It was the kiss of someone remembering what hope feels like. When we parted, the piano was silent. Outside, dawn began to break. Would you like me to continue straight into part 3, the final section, next, where they face the outside world, the truth about his scars, and the story resolves in their shared redemption and lasting love, with your YouTube call to action at the end? The morning sunlight poured through the wide glass windows, falling in golden ribbons across the floorboards. The storm had passed, leaving the house drenched in silence. I found Adrian in the conservatory, sitting where the first light touched the leaves. He didn't turn as I approached, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the quiet uncertainty of a man who had just crossed a line he never meant to. About last night, he began, his voice low. I stopped him gently. Don't ruin something beautiful by explaining it. He exhaled, as if the air itself had been holding him prisoner. When he finally looked at me, there was no wall between us anymore. Just him. Just me. Just truth. I'm afraid, Isabella, he confessed. Afraid that I'll hurt you. Afraid that this, whatever this is, can't last. I reached for his hand, threading my fingers through his. Then let's not think about forever. Let's just think about today. He smiled faintly, then leaned in and pressed his lips to my forehead, a kiss that felt like both apology and beginning. The air hummed between us again. And when he finally kissed me for real, it wasn't tentative this time. It was deep and searching, a slow unraveling of every restraint he'd ever built. I let myself melt into it, into him, into the warmth that had been waiting just beneath the grief. When we finally broke apart, he whispered, "You're my light, Isabella." And I knew, whatever the world saw in him, this man, this scarred, reclusive soul, he was more human, more alive, than anyone I'd ever known. Love, I learned, doesn't stay hidden for long. It began with whispers in the village, how the reclusive architect had been seen walking by the lake with a woman. Then came the journalists, the camera flashes, the hungry curiosity that never cares what truth costs. One morning, we woke to headlines. The beast of Whitestone Hall has found his beauty. The words stung. I saw the hurt flicker across his face, the old shame returning like an uninvited ghost. He turned from the paper, his voice flat. You see? They'll never let me be anything else. I stepped closer, my hand over his chest. Then let's show them who you really are. His eyes met mine, uncertain. You'd face them? For me? For us, I said. That afternoon, we drove into town. Cameras followed us. Voices shouted questions, but I didn't flinch. I took his hand in mine and smiled, because love, once it blooms, doesn't bow to the noise of the world. When they asked about his scars, I said simply, they're proof that he lived. And in that moment, I saw something shift in him. He stood taller. His hand gripped mine tighter. He smiled for the first time in years, a real smile. Weeks passed. The story faded, as all stories do. But we remained, stronger, quieter, truer. One evening, as the sunset spilled crimson over the horizon, he took me to the garden where we'd first spoken among the roses. The petals glowed like embers in the dying light. I used to think love was for other people, he said softly. That I was too broken to feel it again. And now? I asked. He looked at me for a long time, then said, now I know love isn't something you earn. It's something that saves you, if you let it. He stepped closer, his fingers tracing the outline of my face. I could feel his breath against my skin, the steady rhythm of his heart beneath my palm. And there, in the quiet cradle of twilight, he kissed me again, slow, certain, filled with every word he didn't know how to say. The roses swayed gently around us. The world fell away. For the first time in years, Adrian wasn't living in the shadow of his past. He was living in the light we'd built together. Months later, the house no longer felt haunted. The windows gleamed. Laughter filled the halls. The piano, once a vessel of sorrow, sang again, this time, with joy. I often caught him sketching in the garden, sunlight painting his profile. The scars were still there, yes, but they no longer defined him. They told a story. Our story. And sometimes, when the evening wind carried the scent of roses through the air, he'd wrap his arms around me from behind and whisper, "Thank you for finding me in the dark." And I'd smile, resting my head against him, and whisper back, "Thank you for letting me stay." Because love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about staying when the world expects you to run. It's about seeing beauty beneath the shadow. If you loved this story of passion, healing, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another love story that touches the soul. Hit the like button, share this with someone who still believes in love after scars, and let's keep spreading stories that remind the world what real love feels like.